Good evening. Once again, thank you all for coming. Thank you to Josh for organizing the learning. I'd like to dedicate my words as well, Ilui Nishmas Rav Shlomo ben Yosef Chaim. Our discussion of primarily a Pidyon Ben leads to the Iyun section at the end regarding the status of Kohanim today. I'm sure many of you have been to a Pidyon Ben, but does the Kohen return the money to the father at the end? You may be surprised.
To me.
They didn't with you, okay? Don't feel badly, because that's not.
I mean, when I did it for my son.
That's right. That's not the common custom. But Rav Yaakov Emden suggested that a Kohen should return the money. And the question revolves around, what is the status of Kohanim nowadays? You know, the times of the Beis HaMikdash, the Sanhedrin would sit and they would accept testimony regarding all the Kohanim who would come to work in the Beis HaMikdash. If, for example, there was testimony that the father, the grandfather of this Kohen used to work in the Beis HaMikdash, well, then we could establish that he was a legitimate miyuchas, right? Kohen miyuchas, and he was able to serve in the Beis HaMikdash. Nowadays, obviously, there is no Sanhedrin to make those decisions, and anyway, it would be impractical to try to lay out the case regardless. This is not the first time in history where this problem has arisen. At the destruction, following the destruction of the first Beis HaMikdash, following Galus Bavel, they had a very similar problem. I'm reading to you now from Sefer Ezra, Perek Beis, Psukim Samach Aleph through Samach Gimel, just a little bit of a paraphrase here. There were Kohanim, for example, those who were from the Benos Barzillai. They were descendants of daughters of Barzillai, but they claimed that on their father's side that they were proper Kohanim. However, Bikshuk Savam HaMesyachsim, they searched for their documents that would show their legitimacy as Kohanim, V'lo nimtza'u, but they didn't find them. Vayigalu min hakahuna, I guess from the word Gaal, they were banned. No, actually, Gaal, they were banned from kahuna. Vayomer HaTirshasa, which was a name given to Nehemiah, he said to them, Lo yochlu mikodesh hakadoshim, you won't be able to eat from the holy karbanos as Kohanim would. Ad amod kohen leurim u'lesumim. In other words, in his time, at the time of the second Beis HaMikdash, there was no Urim Tumim. There was no way to ask, so to speak, for divine counsel. And therefore, until Mashiach comes, Nehemiah told them they wouldn't be able to have that status anymore. So how do we treat our Kohanim today who certainly don't have the yichus that these Kohanim looked for unsuccessfully? There are actually several perspectives on this question. Some Achronim, such as Kiryas Sefer and the Maharit, say that Kohanim today are to be considered legitimate, even midaraisa, on a Torah level. Others, for example, the Maharashtam, Shvus Yaakov, Beis Ephraim, say only midarabanan are we to consider Kohanim legitimate. But by the way, even if you hold that midaraisa we should consider them legitimate, we still would not permit them to eat truma d'oraisa. Truma, that section of produce, of crops, that farmers, that Jews in ancient times would set aside for the Kohanim. It could be true, real, genuine truma d'oraisa if it was grown in Eretz Yisrael, and if it was from the species for which Eretz Yisrael is praised, olives and grapes, or the 5 species of grain. The truma d'oraisa, everyone agrees they would not be allowed to eat, either because the isser of a non-Kohen eating truma d'oraisa is so stringent that everyone agrees they should not be eating it, or because allowing a Kohen to eat truma d'oraisa is an absolute confirmation of his lineage, something, again, that we're not ready to say. So that wouldn't be a practical difference. But there is even a third point of view. In other words, either they are considered midaraisa or midarabanan to be kohanim. But the third point of view is that no, actually, they are to be considered suffik kohanim. Doubtful kohanim. Maybe they are kohanim. By the way, you might wonder why is it that if you hold only midarabanan they are kohanim, but aren't they kohane chazaka? If there's a chazaka that a given kohen is to be considered a kohen, then why should we say, no, midaraisa, you're not a kohen anymore? And the suggestion that he makes here is that there are two kinds of chazaka. When we know that something was true, barring a reason to suggest that it isn't true, we can consider it to still be the case. But we don't ever know that the supposed Kohen standing in front of us was a Kohen or that his ancestors were. We don't know that. He just says his father, his grandfather, his forefathers were Kohanim. Well, we don't know that this person was a Kohen in the past. We don't know that his forefathers were definite Kohanim either, even though he tells us they were. We're only assuming that throughout the generations the family was able to preserve their lineage, but we really don't know even that. So it's a quasi-chazaka, if you will, that might be good on a derabanan level, but not midaraisa. So midaraisa they could be kohanim, midarabanan they might be kohanim, or this third point of view, the Am Shel Shlomo, suffik kohanim. After all, there have been countless generations between Aaron a Kohen and now, and many kohanim married women who were forbidden to them. Records have been lost. Who is a Kohen, who is a Schall, married someone that would invalidate his kahuna. All of this we don't know, and therefore it's doubtful. And that, in fact, is the ruling of the Ramah regarding challah d'Rabbanan, that Kohanim today should not be able to eat even challah that's of the halacha only of mid'Rabbanan. Now let's bring this back to the case of Pidyon Haben. At the end of the Pidyon Haben, according to the Chassam Sofer, the Aruch HaShulchan, we consider Kohanim to be absolute Kohanim, even for a din d'oraisa like Pidyon Haben, of course, is halacha mid'oraisa. And there would be no reason for the Kohen to return the money, of course, as in the case that you mentioned. However, Rav Yaakov Emden says it's proper for the Kohen to return the money at the end of the ceremony. After all, we really don't know for sure that he's a Kohen. And therefore, what right does he have to take or to retain money that very possibly belongs to somebody else? Number one. Number two, he suggests that a father should perform a Pidyon Haben with each and every Kohen that he meets during his lifetime. Because if I have a mitzvah to redeem my son, so I gave you 5 silver coins, but we don't know that you are a Kohen. I might as well do it because maybe you are, but maybe you're not. And once we acknowledge that maybe you're not, then shouldn't I try again? Din d'oraisa. I heard the story many times about the Vilna Gaon, that he would do this, that he was a Bechor supposedly, and that every time he met a supposed Kohen, he would have his, handy-dandy 5 silver coins, and I guess he was getting it back every time, otherwise this was an expensive hobby. And finally, what about a firstborn of a mother who is herself the daughter of a Kohen or a Levi? My son, Tani, some of you know him, he's a Bechor, Ben Bechor, Ben Bechor, Ben Bechor. It's a tradition in my family to be a firstborn. And I remember one of my Rebbeim, Rav Yitzchak Cohen, he was very excited to hear, he has a Bechor, and such a unique Bechor. But I explained to Rabbi Cohen that my son's mother is a Bas Levi. So he said, right? Because if the Bechor is the child of a mother who comes from a family of Leviim or Kohanim, then there is not this obligation, there is not this mitzvah Pidyon Haben.
Why? There's a suffix, right?
We have only a few minutes together, but what we're saying is, I think this may be what you're getting at, is that since it's only a suffix, my father-in-law hopefully isn't listening, but since it's only a suffix, whether he's a real Levi, even if he'd claim he was a Kohen, right, and maybe they were extra careful with their yichus, it's at best a suffix, at least according to Rav Yaakov Emden. Therefore, if you're going to try to redeem your son through many supposed Kohanim, then I guess you should redeem your son if he is a grandson of supposed Kohanim and Leviim. And although this is certainly not the custom, but that is the third suggestion of Rav Yaakov Emden. Number one, the Kohen should return the money because it might not be his. Number two, you should perform the Pidyon Haben multiple times with multiple Kohanim, because maybe one of them at least is a real Kohen. And finally, that even the Kohen whose maternal grandfather claims he's a Kohen or a Levi, you should still redeem him. This discussion has many ramifications in various areas of halacha. Of course, Pidyon Haben not the only one. One area that I don't think is mentioned, for those of you who are going to go back and read the full section here for further Ian, because I only gave you some components of it, I don't believe he mentions about the halacha of treating Kohanim with extra respect. And I tell you a story. This guy told me that his roommate is very careful because his roommate has a roommate who is a Kohen, and therefore he'll never ask him to take out the garbage. You're not supposed to, Yisrael is not supposed to ask a Kohen to service him, especially in a way that could be seen as menial or not respectful. There are many ways in which we treat Kohanim with extra respect. Some of the more famous ones, giving a first aliyah, this we know, but some may not be aware that there are these other halachos like the one I just mentioned. So this guy was very careful, this roommate was very careful, because of this other roommate who maybe was a Kohen, he was very careful not to ask him to do any menial, not to benefit from him in any way along those lines. Why is it that some of you are stunned to hear about this halacha? A couple of suggestions that I saw. Number one, maybe the halacha does not apply at all after the Churban Beis HaMikdash. Maybe it's only a lifnim mishuras hadin, number one. But even people who are very meticulous in mitzvos and even try to be makayim every lifnim mishuras, every midas chasidus, probably most of them don't do this either. And another suggestion that I came across is that nowadays we're not really sure who is a Kohen. And therefore, maybe that's another sniff lahakel, another reason for possible leniency in a case like this. So what then? In conclusion, the Rambam in Hilchos Malachim, this is in Perek Yud Beis, Halacha Gimel, Bimei Melech HaMashiach, Kishetis Yashev Mamlachto, V'yiskabtzu Elav Kol Yisrael. During the Messianic era, once his kingdom, once the Melech HaMashiach, once his kingdom has been established, in other words, there are things that are going to come before this, once all of Klal Yisrael has gathered around him, then Yisyachasu kulam al piv beruach hakodesh shatanuach alav. The Melech HaMashiach is going to have divine prophetic insight and inspiration. Shenemar, as the pasuk in Malachi says, "V'yoshav mitzaref u'metaher." He's going to sit as a refiner and as a purifier, meaning of people, of lineage, showing us who is who. U'bnei Levi metaher tchila va'omer zem yuchas Kohen v'zem yuchas Levi. He's going to tell us what maybe people won't know. This person actually is a Kohen. This person really is a Levi, and then we'll know for sure. And he quotes the pasuk with which we began, Harehu Omer, Vayomer Hatir Shasalahem Aramod HaKohen Le'urim B'sumim. The Rambam bases this on that pasuk in Ezra, which we quoted a little while ago, that Nehemiah told the Bnei Barzilai that when comes the Urim B'tumim, in that fateful day, hopefully not too far off, that's when these issues will be settled. Hine lamadata, says the Rambam, you see from this pasuk, sheberuach hakodesh miyachasin hamuvzokin umodiin hamyuchas. We're going to see about the proper lineage. Mirz Hashem, it should take place soon. V'mheira v'yameinu. Amen.
Hey, Eliezer, why are we more particular?